Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so I think let's start. Already we are delayed. So those who will join, they will later join on. So any question on the last class? Somebody wants to say something else?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello, sir. Sir, yesterday when you are taking the attendance, sir.
Uh,
Sir, at the time of taking attendance, when you're calling the name of Webho, my mobile will get switched off, so I will not attend the attendance. Sir,
what's your name?
sir Mahesh Sharma, sir, 3272.
Mahendra Kumar Sharma.
Yes,
You
sir.
are,
32.
but I have called twice or thrice yesterday.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, you have called the one when you are at the roll number of the Webho. Maybe he's of BTech class. So when you are called BTech at the same time, my mobile gets switched off and connection disconnected. So
Mahendra, please see, you are all grown-up students. You know tomorrow there is a class. You should the whole night. You should put your mobile in charge so that
yeah,
this
sir.
go for
Yeah,
the
sir.
all 4 5 classes.
Yes,
Suppose
sir.
the mobile was switched off during the attendance roll call. Attendance. If you could have switched off from the beginning, the class starting, then the whole class would be missed. See,
Okay, sir.
everything is there in the
No, no,
book.
sir. No, no, sir. No, no, sir. Sir, actually, you have taken the attendance at the last of the class. Sir, I have taken the
Of
class.
course. No, that's
So,
what I'm saying. If your mobile will be switched off from the beginning, suppose or middle of the
oh,
class,
yeah, yeah. Yes, sir.
you will lose the technical matter. Say
Yeah,
attendance
yeah,
is not a problem. Attendance in my hand I can give. But thing is that if the contents will be lost, see everything is there in the book. Then why government is paying a huge amount of money to the teachers to teach everything? The book you can read from the book. So please see, charge your mobile the night in the
okay.
night so that
Yes,
it will continue for the whole day.
yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Uh, um, okay. Good morning. Let's see the next chapter on the.
So you are not audible.
Sir, you have been muted, sir.
Now am I audible and it is visible? Anyone please
Yes, sir.
respond?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
it's audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I'm sorry. Let's continue. So whenever you are going to start a new project, many project developers, students, or managers, they are confused where to start, how they can make a planning, where to start. So very often many students, project managers, and others, they are often at a loss as to where to start when new to project planning. When they are initially starting, they are new to project planning, they confuse where to start. In this regard, a structured approach will be beneficial. It can cater the needs of such new people. So this class will discuss about a stepwise method, a structured approach for this project planning. So the approach that I will discuss in the subsequent slides, this can help. This is applicable to a wide range of different types of projects. So before this stepwise approach or the structured approach, actually there are many standard approaches are also there. People are using many standard approaches. One such approach is Prince. Okay, Now let's see, already the Prince or some other standard approaches are there, but why you should go for another stepwise or structured approach? I'll give few reasons why the standard approaches which are there, why people prefer another stepwise or structured approach in comparison to the existing ones such as Prince 2. Let's see. It might be asked why a standard approach such as Prince 2 it has not been adopted. So there are many reasons. Let's say number one is this approach Prince 2. Normally it is there also in your book. You can see Prince 2 normally it was used in UK. So other country people they are not using almost Prince. So Prince was almost used in UK only. That is number one. That's why it is not becoming popular. Second, to what techniques, what procedures they are used in Prince. All those things are also in this stepwise approach that I am saying. So Prince 2 tends to focus more on procedural and bureaucratic matters at the expense of some techniques. And the few planning techniques which are used in Prince, they are also used with the stepwise model approach that we will discuss now. For example, you will see the development of in Prince, they are using product flow diagram. How the products are flowing or they have the activities from products to products they are flowing. They are representing in the form of a diagram called as product flow diagram. Here also similar type of diagram we use in this stepwise approach. So that's why people they prefer due to several other reasons might be there. I have listed here two reasons. So due to such types of reasons, people are using, they are preferring this stepwise approach or the structured approach over the standard approaches such as Prince 2. This is the overview of our stepwise approach. First step is you have to select the project. There are many number of projects are there, or there are many number of project proposals. There are many number of alternative projects are there. You have to select which one the best one. Okay, which one is the best one? How you can decide? Here we have seen many techniques such as feasibility study. I have told how to select the best project among a number of given projects or number of given project proposals or a number of alternative projects. You can use the different selection techniques, maybe feasibility study methods or the different project evaluation techniques I have told, such as NPV, present value, net profit method, etc. Use those kind of techniques, select which one is the best one and you should proceed with that one. So basically you may use a cost benefit analysis. You can carry out the different feasibility studies such as technical feasibility, financial feasibility, operational feasibility, etc. to select a project. After selecting the project, what you have to do? You have to identify the objectives of the project. What this project is going to do? What are your principal objectives in the project? What you need to solve? So identify the different project objectives. Then identify the project infrastructure. If you are doing a project for yourself in-house, then it may not be so much important. But if you are developing a project for a client at a remote place and special type of applications such as the control system application or the software for monitoring the temperature of a blast furnace, you have to identify what infrastructure required, what should be the characteristics of the environment. Those things must be identified. Identify the project infrastructure, the characteristics of the environment, etc. Then after that, after completing or after identifying the objectives and the project infrastructure, you should analyze the different characteristics of the project. Okay, what characteristics are there or how the project is running right now? If you have an existing system, if you are going to completely develop, then also you should by referring different R&D papers, libraries, etc. You have to analyze what will be the proposed project characteristics. Then you have to identify the products and the activities. You must have to see at the end of your project what will the final output, what will the final product. And not only the final product, in between you may get some intermediate products. So you have to, for your which project you have selected, what will be the final product and what will the intermediate products, that you have to decide. Then you have to see what are the activities, what techniques, what processes are required to get those final products or end products or the intermediate products. Okay. So first you have to identify what are the final products and the intermediate products. Then you have to identify what activities or what processes, what procedures are required to develop or to obtain this final product and determined products. After that, you have to go for, so now you have identified what are the activities needed to get the products. Then you have to identify, you have to estimate how much effort will be required to carry out that activity. There are many number of activities. To carry out the activities, how much effort will be required, you have to estimate. We will take maybe 4 or 5 classes on effort estimation. You have had different techniques like Kokomo you might have had. So those kind of things will use for estimating the effort. Then identify the activity risks. So after identifying the activity, as I have already told you, every project is associated with some risks. I mean, what a project consists of several activities. So each activity might have some risks. So identify what are the activity risks. Okay, identify what are the risks associated with the activity. Then allocate the resources. You have to find out, in order to carry out your activity, what kind of resources you require, how many computers, how many manpower, how many printers, or how many other hardwares or networking devices or other equipments. Allocate, you have to estimate the resources, then allocate the resources, because your resources are fixed and simultaneously you have to carry out say 10 projects. So how many resources will be allocated to how many projects, which project that you have to see. Okay, so allocate the resources to projects. Then your project is in progress, you have to review or publicize the plan. What you have to do after doing all the estimating the effort, identifying the risks, allocating the resources, then you once review it, because you might have done some mistake. You have added more resources, more time you have not given, number of, or you require high amount of effort, but by mistake you have given low amount of effort. So once you prepare this plan, then you review it. Once you review it and then publicize the plan, whatever you have done, you publicize it. Because you see, if you are doing a mistake one time, second time you are not able to catch it, 10 times you just look at, you cannot catch that problem mistake. But if you give to your friend or somebody else, they can easily detect the mistake. So that's why whatever you have made the plan, once you review yourself or within your group, then you publicize it among the other team members or among the other members of the company or the organization. Then they can detect if any mistake or if any lacuna is there, they can find out. Then if you do not if you get any suggestions, etc., you then carry out it. And if you do not, if you no suggestion, etc., are coming, that means it is okay. Then what you do, you go for executing the plan, implement the plan. Okay, so this plan what you are doing, this is at a very higher level. Then you have to go to the exact minute level, lower level, then you can make a lower level planning. And after this lower level planning, again you can review it, identify the products and activities. So this will be in cycle. Similarly, this lower level detail can be applied to these steps 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. Then normally this process is an iterative process. So here I have basically discussed what are the activities, what are the steps you have to carry out for planning a project, and then how to execute it. Okay, this is a very simple one. In your book it is explained. So few slides also here, you can read yourself. These things already I have explained to you. Like in selecting project, this is the first step. You have to use some processes by which the project to be executed and select, and that the project we have to there must be some processes by which the project to be executed that was selected, isn't it? There must be some process by which the project to be executed was selected. You can use different feasibility study methods and different project evaluation techniques such as NPV, etc. Then identify the project objectives. This I have already told you, identify project infrastructure. Here it may not be very much important or significant. If you are working on an in-house project in a very familiar environment, you know the you know the environment very well. But where the project is being carried out for some external clients, remote clients, or some specific special clients, some special environment might be there. Then you need to investigate the characteristics of the environment in which the project is to be carried out. Example I have given. Like you are going to develop a control automation software or a software for the monitoring the temperature of a blast furnace. Obviously, this is outside your organization. The environment is required. It's completely different. It's special. So you have to identify what are the project infrastructure and what are the characteristics of the environment. This is step 2. Then after identifying the objectives and the project infrastructure, analyze the project characteristics. Here you have to identify different technical and management approaches, because different types of projects, they may require different types of technical approaches and management approaches. Let's quickly take a small example. Suppose you are going to develop a project to implement the control software embedded in an industrial equipment. Again, you can take that blast furnace example also. So a project is going to implement the control software embedded in some industrial equipment. This project, it will need a different set of methods, different sets of techniques than project to implement a business information system or a management information system or a student information system, isn't it? In student information system, just a computer is required, a database you have to develop also. And you have to answer some queries, handle some queries. But in case of control software embedded in an industrial equipment like blast furnace, completely you have to use different methods, different procedures, different techniques, and the environment characteristics different. You have to use special hardwares, isn't it? So then the temperature must be like 100 degrees centigrade or so. These chemicals are required, so the environment will be completely different. The characteristics will be different. Hence, you have to use different sets of methods and techniques for a control automation software than that of a business information system or a student information system. Again, let us consider another example. If you are going to develop a multimedia application, this would again need a different sets of activities than that of the business information system or the student information system or the control automation software. So a multimedia application may again need a different set of activities. So that's why what I have told, different types of projects, they may require different technical and management approaches. So that's why you have to analyze the project characteristics, then you decide which technical and which management approaches will be appropriate for that particular category of project. So analyze the project characteristics. This I have already explained, that analyze, identify products and activities with the software projects. It is products, both deliverables and intermediate to be created. So while a project is coming, identify what will the end product as well as what will be the intermediate product. Then identify the activities those are needed to create these products. That means the final product or the intermediate products. They can then be identified. Then fifth step I have already explained. Estimate the effort per activity. So after identifying the activities, then we have to do. In the fourth step, we have identified the products and the activities required to get those products. So after identifying the activities, we have to estimate how much report will be required. Okay, estimate the effort that will be required for carrying out the above identified activities, and we'll see that for estimating the effort, we again require two things: estimating the size and estimating the time. So how much size will be required? So what will the estimated project size and what will the estimated project time? Also, we may require. Then we can find out the what we can estimate. We can predict the effort. We will take 2-3 classes on this effort estimation. Example of effort estimation I have already told, like function points you can use, COCOMO you can use, those things. Halstead software science you can use, so those things we'll discuss later on. Then as I have already told you, every activity is having some risks, so identify the activity risks, having assessed the amount of effort and the elapsed time for a project. Then the reasons why this might be vary during the actual execution of the project need to be considered. Identify the risks, then we'll discuss how to handle the risks. We'll take 2-3 classes on the risk handling later on. So where there is a very high risk of additional effort or time being needed, then actions to reduce this risks may be formulated. This is coming under risk management, handling of risks, where you find out that a huge amount of additional effort is required, huge amount of time is required. Then you have to find out some mechanism how these risks can be reduced. So different techniques you will see: risk reduction, risk avoidance, in the risk management chapter. So after identifying the activities, you have to allocate the resources. With the software projects, these resources will mainly be staff, but could be equipment also, isn't it? Because different projects will require different staffs and different equipment. So you identify for your project how much manpower are required, how many PCs you require, how many networking devices are required, how many printers will be required. So those things you have to estimate, and then you have to allocate the resources. So normally for software projects, this will be manpower. But other hardware devices like computers, printers, etc., they may be required. So you please allocate the resources to the project. This I have already explained. Review and publicize the plan. It is no good having, or it is not good having a plan if no one knows about it, isn't it? Only if you have known that there will be some mistakes you are able to, you are not able to detect. So it's better to what? Once you review and then publicize it, so that others can comment on this, they can find out the lacunas, they can find out the mistakes, and they can guide you to write the plan properly. So review and publicize the proposed plan. This is very much important for a project. Then after reviewing it, if no comments you are getting, so maybe what it is correct, so then you can go for executing the plan. So next step is executive plan. So whatever plan you have proposed, try to execute it. Implement the plan, execute the proposed plan or implement the proposed plan. Last step is low level planning. Whatever we have seen up to this level, this is high level planning. Now we have to go a little bit lower level, little bit minutely. We have to go in the minute level. Let's see what we have to do there. So lower level planning, not all of a project, especially when it is large, can be planned in a detail at the outset, isn't it? If it is a very large project, like you see railway reservation system or this aeroplane reservation system, those things are very large kind of projects. You cannot plan everything at the outgo. You cannot plan everything at the outset. So it has to be done in step by step, or first you develop the overall plan, then you can develop into several modules, then you make the plan for each module, then each module may be developed, divided into some sub-modules, sub-modules or sub-modules, then you prepare the plan for each sub-module like this. So for larger projects, not all of a project, I am not saying this low level planning is required for all projects. For smaller projects, for medium projects, that is not required. But especially when the project is very large, then you cannot plan everything at the outset. So try to first develop the overview, then gradually go down. Not all of a project, especially when it is very large, can be planned in detail at the outset. Not all the information needed to plan the later stages will be available at the beginning, isn't it? All the information you cannot get at the beginning, only when the project starts. During the implementation of the project, gradually you are getting some information, and you have to take into account those information. So that's why not all information needed to plan the later stages will be available at the beginning. Let's take a small example. So for example, the software development cannot be broken down into precise subtasks with realistic target times until more is known about what the overall design of the system is known. So you have done the overall design. So simply you have made, that waterfall model, requirement analysis, then design, then coding, etc. So how much time you will give to design? It's very much how much effort you want to give to design phase. It's very much difficult to say at the outset just by looking up, following that waterfall model, just by looking at the design activity. You have to see what kind of design is involved, whether only code design or GUI design or database design. Many designs are there. You have to consider all those things. Then you have to see how much large that project is. What should be the size of the database? How complex designing that UI, user interface? So all those things you have to take into account. Whether you are going for a procedure-oriented design, that means using DFD, or you are going to an object-oriented design using UML diagrams. So all those things, all the information regarding these may not be available at the beginning. Only when you will progress, after some time you may get some information. So, but you cannot say that I will not consider, I have already started the project. This is the drawback of waterfall model. Later on you cannot change. That's why nowadays many people are using Agile. Wherever any change is coming anytime, Agile models can accommodate. So that's why for larger projects, make the plan overall at the outset. Then gradually when you will go into deeper and deeper, then the more accurate information will come, and you have to make the plan at the lower level. This is known as lower level planning. Not all the information needed to plan the later stages will be available at the beginning. And here you have taken an example. For example, the software development, it cannot be broken down into precise subtasks or submodules with realistic target times until more information is known about what the overall design of this system is known. This design is a very small process. Everything will do in one module, or design we are divided into 2-3 sub-modules like code design, database design, UI user interface design, like that. So it will depend on this later stage information. So that's why you have to do the planning at the lower level for larger projects. So plan later at the lower level or in detail. Okay, so that's why you at the outset you make the overview, you make the plan for the overview, or you make an overview plan. Then later on you make the plan in the lower level, in detail, or in minutes, or minutely. This is how low level planning it works. Now what I will do, I will take an example. All the steps that I have told, I will explain those steps. I have taken a case study from your book, a project scenario. There is a college known as Brightmouth College. They want to develop a payroll system. So they want to make a plan, and how they can do this plan. They may use this structured approach, this stepwise approach what we have discussed. So currently the college has this payroll processing carried out by a services company. So they are giving to a services company like TCS, etc. Currently they are doing. This is very expensive, you know. These consultancy companies, they take very huge amount of money. This is very expensive and does not allow detailed analysis of personal data to be carried out. And this feature, suppose, is not there, how to carry out the detailed analysis of the personal data, that is not available. So that's why this college authority, they have decided to bring the payroll in-house by acquiring an off-the-shelf application. Okay, you know, nowadays many ready-made packages are available, and you purchase those things, then you customize those things yourself. This is known as off-the-shelf application. So a decision is made by the college authority to bring the payroll in-house. They will bring into their in-house, so that as they will wish, they can change it, they can modify it, they can customize it. How? By acquiring an off-the-shelf application. In the market, many ready-made applications are there available. We call them as off-the-shelf application. Purchase the off-the-shelf application, and then you can customize, just modify a little bit. You can customize according to your own need. You know, the advantages of the off-the-shelf application is that they produce in a massive scale. So when purchase from the market, this layer cost will be less. Only you have to little bit customize it. So if that customization is acceptable for you, it's better to go for this off-the-shelf application. So this is the single decision taken or made by the college authorities, that to bring the payroll in-house by acquiring an off-the-shelf application from the market. Now let's see what is the details of this project. What they want. The advantages of payroll off-the-shelf system I have already told you. What is that? The use of the off-the-shelf system will require a new internal payroll office to be set up. Now I am going to gradually analyze the problem. If I will purchase something from the market, I have to I have to customize in my office, in our college. Then obviously I require some people. I require an office or a data center or a computer center. So this is required. So that's why in the first line it is written that the use of the off-the-shelf system will require a new internal payroll office to be set up, because previously the TCS was doing something. So now they will develop in their own institution. So they have to develop a new internal payroll office. You can call it a data center or a computer center that has to be set up for carrying out this project. There will be a need to develop some software add-ons, isn't it? Because I'm saying that you have to customize it, because the ready-made package may not contain everything else. So you have to customize it. You have to develop some add-ons. So there will be a need to develop some software add-ons. One will take payroll data and combine with the timetable data to calculate the staff cost for each course run in the college. Suppose this feature is not there. You want to payroll and you want that how many staffs are there and how many suppose courses you are floating. A teacher is taking how many classes per week, and then you have to give him the salary accordingly. And this thing can be get where that a teacher takes how many classes from the timetable you can get. So that's why this feature, this is a special feature for your organization, and this is not available in the off-the-shelf system. So there is a need to develop some extra software as add-ons. So this add-on will take the payroll data from this what is the ready-made software, and it will combine with the timetable data which is there in your university to calculate what? To calculate what will the staff cost for each course those are running in the college. And for every project there should be a manager. So this project they have appointed Brigret as the project manager. Okay. Now I am applying all my steps, 10 steps I have told to this particular case study. So first step is what? Identify the project. Step 0, that we have already identified what is your project, isn't it? Select the project. We have decided that we'll if there are alternate projects, then we have to select which one is the best one, and we have to do feasibility study or project evaluation methods, etc. Here we are not doing no alternative. We are directly selecting from the market many payroll packages are available. Directly will go to the market and purchase one. So step 0 is not relevant here. So that's why I'm directly coming to step 1. And step 1 is what? Establish the project scope and the objectives. Here if you see what are the project scopes and objectives. First step is identify the objectives and measures of effectiveness. How do you know if we have succeeded? Isn't it? Whether by purchasing this thing at the end, how do we know if we have succeeded or not? Then, so these are I am discussing the project scope and objectives. So first we have to decide. Identify the project objectives and measures of effectiveness. That means we should answer the question: how do we know if we have succeeded? Then establish a project authority. For every project there should be an authority. That means who is the boss? That we have to decide. Who is the boss? We have to decide now. Then identify all the stakeholders in the project and their interest. Who are the stakeholders in a project? And not only that, what is their interest? What benefit they will get out of the project? Who will be affected or who will be involved in this project? So these are the scopes and objectives of the project. So now let us. There is one more objective left. Modify the objectives in the light of stakeholder analysis. So here we have identified who are the stakeholders and what is their interest, how much they will be affected or how they will be affected or involved in this project. From this analysis of this stakeholders interest, you do what you do. If something is requires modification because you are preparing for the first time. If some objectives need to be changed, change them in the light of the stakeholder analysis. Modified or change the objectives in the light of the stakeholder analysis if required. Please try to answer the question that do we need to do things to win over stakeholders? Is it required to perform some things, to carry out some things to win over the stakeholders? So try to answer this question. Then establish the methods of communication with all parties. There are several stakeholders. If you see the stakeholders in a college are the principal or the director, then the teachers, then the non-teaching staffs, registrars, deans, and the peon, etc. So many. So establish methods of communication with all parties. How do we keep in contact? You can say one method is through email. But normally the 4th grade employees, peons, etc., they do not open email every day. So for them a hard copy is required. You have to generate a report, and that report has to be circulated physically to all the departments. So similarly, identify or establish the methods of communication with all parties, with all stakeholders. That means try to find out the answer to this query. How do we keep in contact with all the stakeholders? Now we'll back to the scenario for our case study. Let us apply these steps. What I have told, these are the steps in what? That establish project scope and objectives. We have discussed these are the steps. So now we'll apply to our scenario this college payroll system. Okay. So one question was we have to identify the project authority. So here we have already known the project manager is Brigade. So Brigade finds that she has two different clients for the new system. There are two different clients. Who? One is the financial department, who will be interested in the payroll part, and the personnel office, who will know the details of the faculty members and what courses they are teaching, etc. The workload. So they are interested. The personnel office is interested in those staff matters or the details of the faculty members. So the project manager Brigade finds that she has two different clients for the new system. One is the finance department and other one the personnel office. A vice principal he agrees to be the official client because the project manager have to deal with some stakeholder. A vice principal agrees to be the official client, and monthly meetings are chaired by the vice president. So vice president will the vice principal will monitor the progress. So a vice principal agrees to be the official client, and monthly meetings are carried out with the vice principal as the chairman, and this meeting is attended by this project manager Brigade and heads of these two departments, the finance department HOD and the personnel office HOD. They are members of that committee. They attend this meeting. It would also help overcome communication barriers. So if there is any problem regarding the communication, this meeting, if that is done every month or so, then this communication barriers can be overcome. These meetings should also help overcome the communication barriers. Then stakeholders and revision to objectives. So once this project authority or this project manager Brigade has prepared these objectives, then there can be you can make revisions. The stakeholders may check, may verify the objectives prepared by the project manager Brigade. They may give suggestions to revise the objectives. The application will not ultimately be a success if project team members are not happy to use the system, isn't it? That's why the objective that you have set, that should be reviewed by the different stakeholders. They should be happy. They should say that yes, the objectives those are written by the project manager is okay, or some revision is required. They may suggest how to make changes to the set of objectives. They might be happier to use the testing system if the results of their own tests are automatically notified to them personally by the software application. So the stakeholders, they might be quite happy to use the testing system if the results of their own test were automatically notified to them personally by the software application. So if that means they may give their own testing, you might have known earlier. So if they will give some test data and the results are successful, that means when a testing is successful, if the expected data matches with the actual data, then we say that testing is successful. So if the stakeholders, they provide test cases of their own and get the results are notified to them personally by the software application, then they become more happy. So that this might have to be added as a requirement for the project. So if this is the case, this was not mentioned in the original objective, you have to add, because some clients are saying that there should be a method while we will give some test data, the result will be sent by the software application automatically. It was not there previously. Now, if some client is saying, some stakeholder is saying, then you have to add this as an objective in the list of objectives, so that at the end, the user will have to verify, I am giving the data, why it is not coming automatically to my system, maybe through email or to some FTP or something like that. So like that, whenever any change is required, you have, as a project manager, set the objectives, give it to the other stakeholders. let them investigate, let them give some suggestions, and if the suggestions are valid, you incorporate in your list of objectives, you modify your list of objectives. So this is how we have seen that stakeholders, they may want to revise the objectives set by a project manager. Stakeholders, so here we have seen that two important stakeholders are there, personnel office and finance office. So for example, the personnel office would supply details of new staff, labors and changes, promotions, etc. Where you will get when a teacher gets promotion, when a teacher takes leave or any new staff joins, that will be given by the personnel office. So the different stakeholders are like this. For example, the personnel office, they would supply the details of the new staff's joined, leavers and changes or promotions the staff members that are getting that can be obtained from the personnel office. To motivate the cooperation, so Brigade, the project manager, might ensure new payroll system produces reports that are useful to the personnel staff, isn't it? So previously, what reports they are getting, this new system must generate better reports that those will be useful to the personnel staff. We'll quickly go to the step 2. It is quite easy. Establish the project infrastructure. Now here we have to establish the link between the project and any strategic plan. Why did they want the project? We have to identify the installation standards and the procedures. That means what standards should I follow? Then identify the project team organization. We'll take 2-3 classes on the team organization. There are some levels like top level management, middle level management, bottom level management, etc. So as a what a stakeholder, where do I fit in? Where will be my place? That we have to decide. At the same time, as establishing exactly what the project objectives are, the person responsible may also may know little about the organizational environment in which the application is to be developed and implemented. There must be organizational structure, and the different persons, they will be fit at which level, at which place the project, the person responsible should know some details about this. The actions in step 2 that we have already seen, it addresses this problem. Then go to step 3, analysis of project characteristics. This I have already told you earlier. Here we have to distinguish the project based, these objectives have to be fulfilled, or product based. Finally, an end product has to be developed. So you distinguish, you clearly mention that whether your project is objective based or product based. If there are more than one way of achieving this success, so this objective or this product, okay, if there are only single way or multiple ways are there, if there are more than one way of achieving success, if there are more than one way of achieving success, then decide which method you should follow. Then analyze other project characteristics such as what should be the quality, like that, whether you are looking at ISO 9000 quality or ACI CMM quality or 6 quality, those. What is different about this project? How it is different from the differences are quite easy. You can read yourself. Like with a product-based project, the developers, they have to create a what? End product. They have to create an end product, the specification of which is often clearly defined. The specification of the product is clearly defined by the client. Whereas in an object-based project, the problem is defined that needs to be solved, but there could be more than one solution. There can be more than one solution. For example, if an organization needed a payroll application, they might consider maybe 2-3 objectives, like writing the system themselves. They are having their own members, like in NIT Rourkela, we are having an automation system. Our payroll system is developed by us. Otherwise, using a service company to do the payroll for them, like they may give to TCS or so, third party, they may develop. Or third option is acquiring an off-the-shelf package. Go to the market, purchase a ready-made package. So in an object-based project, a problem is defined which has to be solved, but there can be more than one solution. You have to select which solution will be beneficial for you. So that you have to do. This is the main difference between objective-based projects versus product-based projects. then next step is analyze other project characteristics such as is it an information based system like student information system, business information system, or something like that, or an embedded real time system like a temperature monitoring system for blast furnace, or a washing machine based software for a washing machine, or a software Android application for a mobile device, or a multimedia application. So what kind of system it is? Based on that, identify the characteristics. Or it is a safety critical system. Safety critical system means a system, if there will be a small fault, minor fault, then either huge number of lives or huge number, either huge amount, huge money will be lost, or a large number of lives will be lost. For example, is that you are developing a system, navigation system for for an aeroplane. So if a small mistake, then either the aeroplane, see, small mistake in the air, the aeroplane cannot hold there, it will immediately fall down, hundreds of lives will be lost. These are examples of safety critical systems. So another safety critical system is your banking system. See, if there is minor mistake, so if you are deposited 1 crore rupees, it will go to another account. So huge amount of loss, huge amount of monetary loss or loss due to transaction. So that is an example of safety critical system. So you have to see, is it a safety critical system? If it is a safety critical system, you have to adopt different characteristics, exactly monetary characteristics, not a single error is allowed. So identify what kind of system you are going to develop. If you see our payroll system, obviously it is an information system, just like student information system. This is a payroll information system. This is coming under information system. Okay. So analyze the different project characteristics. Then identify the high level project risks. What are the important project risks identify? Like what are the possibilities? What could go wrong? What are the possibilities? What can we do to stop it? If there is some wrong thing going on, how can stop it? How can handle the risks? Take into account user requirements concerning implementation. While you are going to implement, take into account the requirements of the user. Consider the user requirements, because they will be the end users. If they are dissatisfied, your software, your project will not be successful. They will object it. So take into account the user requirements concerning implementation. Then select a general lifecycle approach. So after all those objectives and the methods or the requirements are finalized, select a particular general lifecycle approach. Okay. Now select a general lifecycle approach. You know, several lifecycle approaches are there, like waterfall model, incremental model, prototype model, spiral model, RAD, agile model, etc. So select a general lifecycle approach to develop your project. Then review the overall resource estimates. How many resources will be required? Estimate that. Review the overall resource estimates for a project. Does all this increase the cost? If you will hire all those resources, will it increase the cost of the project? Just think on that. Now let's quickly back to the scenario. So objective versus products. An objective based approach has been adopted, because there are we have seen this is a payroll system. 3 solutions are there. They can develop in-house, or they can give to a third party, or they can purchase a off-the-shelf component from the market and customize. So obviously this is an objective-based project. So an objective-based approach has been adopted. There are some risks, like there may not be an off-the-shelf package that caters for the way payroll is proposed at Brightmouth College, because it is an analyzed package. The special things required by your institute may not be available. Like suppose you are there is an option while in our thing, you will see while we are discussing this payroll system, you know, here the teachers, they get 3 lakhs for 3 years to bring to go to present papers in conference, maybe abroad or inside India, to purchase books, to purchase magazines, etc. This is not that in general colleges. So this is an extra thing for our institute. So like that's why, and if you will go for the off-the-shelf package, then this facility will not get. We call here as PDA, Professional Development Allowance. This Professional Development Allowance, since it is there only IITs and NITs, so the general off-the-shelf package may not have feature of this type of activities. So there is a risk. If you will go for purchasing this off-the-shelf package, then this PDA, Professional Development Allowance feature, is not there. That means we have to, that part we have to develop ourselves and integrate with the off-the-shelf package. So some risk is there. So identify what are the risks and how to handle them. Answer is that the brigade decides to obtain the details of how the main candidate package or the main new package that they have purchased work as soon as possible. Also agreement that if necessary processes will be changed to fit in with the new system. So wherever required, you have to change. Like this, they don't have the professional development allowance. We are here, either you have to modify or our own people can write a new module and we have to integrate with the existing system. So wherever required, you may go for change, and that change should be acceptable to the management. Then you will see that identify the project products and the activities. What will be the final product? What will the intermediate products, and what activities are required? What activities are required to what activities are required to get those products? So identify and describe the project products. Please try to answer the question, what do you have to produce at the end of the project, at the end of the day, what we have to produce. So the selection of products. So the overall module you can have selection of products. So selection of products here, this I am taking the so now we have to see that identify and describe the project products. We have said that what do we have to produce at the end of the day, what we have to produce. Suppose the one of the high level module is selection products. Now we are considering this payroll package for this college. So there can be several intermediate modules like volume figures, office layouts, what are the user requirements, list of the potential suppliers, invitation to tender, like that. Then the user requirements can again further be divided into several modules like existing system description, then what the users are suggesting modifying, users modified requirements, test examples, like this. So identify the end product or the whole product at the outer level, overview of the product, then you can go on dividing. So decide what do we have to produce. Some of them are end products, some of them are maybe the intermediate products. Then so the products can be described like this. The result of an activity. Product means it is a result of an activity. I have already told you there may be two types of products, intermediate product or the final. These products could be among other things also, like a physical thing, installed a PC. It could be a document, like you have to use a logical data structure. It could be a person, like a trained user, that can be also treated as a product, or a new version of an old product. An existing product is there, old product is there, we have modified it. So this a product could be a new version of an old product or an existing product. We call it as updated software. Please remember, the following are not examples of products. Like if you are doing some activity, for example, you are giving training to your employees, it's not a product. But a trained person, a trained user is a product. But the process training is not a product. That's why I'm saying any activity or process like training is not a product. The events, like you are conducting interviews are completed, this is not a product. Resources and actors, for example, your software developer, it is a resource. Software tester is a resource. Software designer is a resource. They are not products. So maybe so resources and actors may be exception. Sorry. So resources and so as I have already told you, activities and events, they are not normally products. Similarly, resources and actors, they are also not normal products, but however, in some cases, there may be exceptions to this. The products can be deliverable or intermediate. This I have already told you. These are the end deliverable products, or they are intermediate products which are developed, which are obtained before getting the final product, or while in the process of getting the final product, you may get some intermediate products. Okay, these are products. For every product, you must describe a document called as product description PD. You have to produce a product description. So this product description should be there for normally for the for every product. You must have a product identity. You must have a description. What is it? What does it do? Derivation based on. Okay, derivation. What is it based on? Composition. This product mainly contains what? What does it contain? What is the format of the final product? what relevant standards it is using, and the quality criteria such as it should satisfy ISO 9000 or ACI CMM or Six Sigma approach like that. So a product description should contain these items. Product flows like here the product flow diagram for the creation of an invitation to tender. This payroll system. This is another example I have taken. I have already told you Prince 2 also uses this product flow diagram. This is also similarly used in case of the structured approach. So product flow diagram for the creation of an invitation to tender. Like first, what we are doing, list of the potential suppliers. Who are the possible suppliers? Then here this is the main flow. Existing system description. What is the description of the existing system? Then users have suggested something. You have modified the requirements. Then you have to collect how much, what is the volume of transaction. Then you can float the tender, invitation to tender. Then different potential suppliers, they will apply against your tender. And then while you are modifying the requirements, you can use some office layouts, you can use some test examples, etc. And you control the flow may come from users modified requirement to the invitation tender. So this is how the product flow diagram looks like for the creation of an product, maybe invitation to tender. So the product diagram I have already explained. You please read yourself. Then recognize the product instances. Okay. The product breakdown, actually there's a product what we can say PBS. I had forgotten the full form. Please look at the book. Maybe so structure something, product breakdown structure something I had forgotten. The PBS and the PFD product flow diagram. They will probably have identified generic products. Those generic products could be software modules. For example, they could be software modules. It might be possible to identify specific instances. Okay, it is possible you can identify some specific instances like module A and module B. But in many cases, this will have to be left to later, more detailed planning. So not at this level required. When you will come to detailed planning, then this you have to identify the specific instances. For example, whether you have to develop or whether you have to move forward to module A or module B, etc. Then finally, you have to create an activity network called as you have to produce ideal activity network. Identify the activities which are needed to create each product mentioned in the product flow diagram. More than one activity might be needed to create a single product. You may require more than one activity to create a single product. And the hint it is given like this. The hint is given here like that.
Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Hello.
Sorry, there is a power cut, so disconnected. Just I will take 5 minutes more. Please keep patience. So now is this slide visible? Anyone can respond, please? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please 5
Yes,
minutes.
sir, visible.
There's a power breakup, so I will finish within 5 to 10 minutes. So identify the activities needed to create each product in the product flow diagram. There may be more than one activity that might be needed to create a single product. And the hints I have told that you can identify the activities. So how to identify the activities? You can identify the activities by verb plus noun, but avoid produce. Okay, so try to identify the activities by using verb or some noun. So draw up the activity network. So I have shown that this thing we have already discussed. So important thing is how to draw an activity network. So this is an example of an activity network. Just one second, please. Sir, namaskar, sir. Sir, class ଟିକେ ଅଛି ଆଉ 5-10 ମିନିଟ୍ ଟିକେ ଲାଗିବ sir. Okay, so now what we'll see that we require we have to draw an activity network. This is an ideal activity I have shown. This is the activity diagram or the idea what we say what we require an activity network. This is an activity network for this Brightmouth college payroll project. You can see this circle is the start. First, you have to analyze the existing system. Also, you have to survey who are the potential suppliers. Who are the potential suppliers you have to survey. From analyzing the system, you can collect the user requirements. Then the user from this, you can get 3 other steps like generate what are these test cases, plan the office layout where you will carry out your office works, calculate the volumes of the transactions. Then from the test cases, it is coming to end because you have to test with the system. Then plan office out, calculate volumes. It led to that like by using this, you can prepare your invitation tender, draft the invitation to tender, and here you have already found out surveyed the potential suppliers. Then here you have already drafted the invitation to tender. Then you can issue the invitation tender to different suppliers. So in this is an activity, ideal activity network. I will give you. I will take more classes on how to draw the activity network, and based on that, we will discuss CPM part in subsequent classes. This is a more detailed activity network where here some checkpoint is pros. If you want that between two things, between two sets of activities, you want to check something, you want to put a checkpoint whether the previous things are correctly performed or not. You want to check, you can put a checkpoint. Then when this checkpoint activity is over, you can go to the next step. There is a provision. You can also put some checkpoints among the activities. Then estimate effort for each activity that I have already told you. Carry out bottom-up estimates. So you have to estimate mainly 3 things: estimate the time, estimate the size. Based on the size and time, you can estimate the effort. Okay, so distinguish carefully between effort and elapsed time. Then revise the plan to create uncontrollable activities. Break up very long activities into a series of smaller ones or sub activities or sub modules. Bundle up very short activities. If there are very minor, small activities, small models, you can bundle them, group them into form some larger activities. Okay, you can identify the activity risks. You can identify and quantify the risks for activities. So you can see that whether damage, what damage occurs, what will the possible damage if risk occurs. You can measure the damage in terms of time lost or money. You can also find out the probability of risk occurring. Then next is plan risk reduction and contingency measures, how the risks can be handled. Like I have told, several activities like risk reduction, risk avoidance, risk mitigation, contingency, etc. That will be discussed in subsequent classes. Then adjust the overall plans and estimates to take account of risks. For example, you can add new activities which can reduce the risks associated with some other activities. For example, you can give training so that the loss can be minimized, the risk can be minimized. You can perform some pilot trials so that the risk can be minimized. You can collect more information which can handle the risks. These are the These are the things how you can identify and handle the activity risks that we'll discuss somewhat later of the syllabus. Allocate resources, identify and allocate various resources to the activities. How many manpower will be required, how many computers will be required, identify and allocate the resources to the different activities. Then revise the plans and estimates to take into account the resource constraints. For example, staff not being available until a later date, non-project activities. Right now, no staffs are there. You will recruit the staff, then they will come and join. So there is some constraint, resource constraints. So try to address these constraints. Or computer machine A is already given to project A. Only when project A will release, then machine A can be allocated to project B. So try to consider those kinds of constraints. If any non-project activities are there, also you have to consider. You can see allocate the resources to various activities using Gantt charts. This is an example of Gantt chart. We will discuss how to draw Gantt charts later on. Just this is for view I have shown on Gantt charts. And step 8 we have already discussed, review and publicize plan. I have already explained you, no need to detail again tell. Review quality aspects of the project plan and document the plans that you have made and obtain an agreement among the different stakeholders. Then you review and publicize the plan. This already we have discussed. And finally, you execute the plan. Then you have to create the lower level plans in detail at the lower levels. Then make the plans minutely at lower levels. Okay. So today we have discussed this how you can follow a stepwise or structured approach for making project plans. We have told that. First, you establish objectives, then think about the characteristics of the project, then discover or set up the infrastructure to support the project, including the different standards, identify the products which are to be created and what activities will be required that will create them. We will discuss more, we will emphasize more on the products and activities later on. Allocate the different resources, then set up the quality processes. Okay, quality standards could be ISO, ACI, CMM, Six Sigma, etc. Set up the quality processes. You have to develop the processes which will satisfy these quality standards. Okay, so your processes must satisfy. You have to decide that your processes should satisfy whether Six Sigma standard or ISO 9000 standard or ACI, CMM standards, etc. Okay, you have to decide this. You have to decide this matter. So these things you have taken all these things from this software project management book. I think this is chapter 3rd. Please go through the detail in this. Please go through chapter 3rd of this book in detail. Okay, please see chapter 3rd of this book. Thank you very much for your patience full hearing. This is basically a theoretical chapter, so nothing is difficult. Please read yourself. I hope this will be clear. If any doubt, you ask me in the next class.
Sir, this slide is not available.
Yes. Please try. I am saying after discussing, I'll put this slide. Yesterday night, I have put yesterday's thing. So after the class is over, then I put this slide.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Normally,
Sorry, I didn't listen, sir.
I will put this, yes, I will put this slide only after the class is taken. Okay. So immediately after now, I will put this slide. Thank you very much.